This episode begins with Yura at the police station waiting to be questioned. We find out that it's not the first time something like this has happened, and Yura fully expects to be let out soon. As she is leaving, she is met with Ji Hyun's grandfather, who tries to tell Yura to take some time to go and volunteer outside of Korea. Yura does not want to resign or volunteer and questions why she should. She asks Ji Hyuk's grandfather what she had done before she closes the car door. Yura then is approached by Ji Hyuk, who tells her that he told his grandfather that it would be a waste of time talking to her. After they have talked, Yura sees Ji Won's mum and Soo-min's dad walking towards the police station.
빨리요! 빨리!
It turns out that Ji Hyuk and Mr. Lee were able to get to them in time and was able to get them out of the van before they died. The prosecutor tells Yura that now that they have turned up, that he would like to talk to her again. Mrs. Yang wakes up from her surgery and we see that Ji Hyuk, Ji Won and Mr. Lee and her family are waiting around the hospital bed for her to wake up. Miss Yang mentioned that she wanted to go to Min Hwan's funeral, especially since it was being held in the same hospital, but Mr. Lee tells her that it is bad to go to a funeral before a major surgery. Ji Hyuk tells Mrs. Yang about what's happening with their case, and she tells Ji Won that she felt when she was getting her surgery that she was getting a second chance at life. Eun-ho arrives at Yoo and Kay and sees that Hee-yeon is back. He sneaks up on her and gives her a little scare. She tells him that the meeting with Ji Won is running a little late. Eun-ho and Hee-yeon are in the break room when Eun-ho asks Hee-yeon if he did something wrong, and she suddenly disappeared without a word. She asks Eun-ho if he missed her when she was away and mentions that he mentions that he made something that he thought that she would like. She teases Eun-ho about how his ears are big and pretty and gives his ear a little poke. Eun-ho tells her that she can touch his hands, but his ears are sensitive.
저 백은호 셰프님 좋아하는 것 같아요.
Hee-yeon tells Eun-ho that she likes him. We see that the chairman, Ji Won, Ji Hyuk and Hee-yeon are having dinner, and Hee-yeon is telling her grandfather how she had first started talking to Ji Won. Ji Won tells Ji Hyuk's grandfather that Ji Hyuk talks the same as him and that she will try very hard to be a good partner to Ji Hyuk. We then see Soo-min buying a jug of petrol from a hardware store. Ji Won and friends are having a little food party in her apartment where Hee-yeon says that Ji Hyuk is not used to food like this, and Ji Won jokes about how Ji Hyuk eats his pork gukbap. Mrs. Yang says that it feels really like she's came back from the dead and asks why Mr. Lee is at the gathering. We know that Mr. Lee wanted to be there for Mrs. Yang's celebration of, a successful surgery with her cancer, but he instead tells her that it is basically to keep an eye on Ji Hyuk and Hee-yeon. The gathering has finished and everyone is heading out, and Mr. Lee offers to give Mrs. Yang a ride home and Eun-ho offers to give Hee-yeon a lift home. When everyone has left, Ji Hyuk asks Ji Won why Eun-ho would give Hee-yeon a lift home, and she tells him that he is clueless.
근데 유희연하고 은호 씨는 왜 둘이 같이 가는 거죠? 아까 유희연이 건배 사역 때 뭐 연애 성공 기원 한 것도 이상하고.
으이구, 눈치도 없어서.
들어갈게요.
Ji Won is alone at home when she hears her doorbell. Ji Won opens the door and no one is there. When she goes to close the door, it is opened by Soo-min, who then tases Ji Won. Soo-min is pouring petrol around the apartment, and we see a cable-tied Ji Won wake up on the floor and see Soo-min doing this. Soo-min mentions that sturdy buildings are insulated and that Ji Won only thinks about herself, like I'm sure that fits Soo-min more than it fits Ji Won. Ji Won tells Soo-min that she always seems to live up to her expectations. Soo-min gets upset and tells Ji Won that she was thrown away like garbage, and she goes on to say that she will turn herself into the police and say that it was an accident and that she ran because she was scared.
엄청 반성하는 척하면 늘 그렇듯 사람들이 다 되게 불쌍하게 생각할 거야.
Soo Min thinks that she has won, but Ji Won tells her that no, she has instead won. Ji Won breaks free from the cable tie and has a scuffle with Soo Min and then manages to flip her before securing her on the floor. She then tells Soo Min that she decided to face Soo Min this time and that Soo Min would not be charged for manslaughter anymore as she has admitted what happened with Min Hwan herself. That's when Ji Won points out the camera that's in the corner which caught everything Soo Min said and has done. We see the shopkeeper watching while looking on his phone and he's reading a report that the police made regarding Soo Min. Mr. Lee tells Ji Hyeok that someone reported a sighting of Soo Min to the police. Ji Hyeok and Mr. Lee go off and they are discussing animal security when Ji Won appears and says that she wants to do things differently and doesn't want to run anymore. They come up with a plan to install a camera in her apartment and they test it out to make sure that it works. We also see Ji Hyun teaching Ji Won how to break cable ties if her hands have been tied. Ji Won tells Soo Min that the price that she will pay for her sins before Soo Min is promptly taken away by the police. Ji Won and Ji Hyun are in bed and they discuss that only good things will happen from now on. Yura leaves the police station and she is told by her secretary that the prosecutors applied for a travel ban and that she should leave the country before it's been put in place. Yura complains that he can do nothing right and demands that car keys and the plane tickets before driving away. Yura is speeding through traffic and eventually gets into a car accident. At the same time, Ji Hyuk is looking in the mirror after having a shower and notices that the heart on his chest has disappeared. He goes to show Ji Won that the heart is gone, and that's when they hear on the news that Yura has died in a car accident. Mr. Lee and Mrs. Yang are in court, and we find out that she has been granted her divorce, and Mr. Lee congratulates Mrs. Yang. He offers to give her a lift home, but she tells him that she is going to have a meal with her friends and as a single woman, but offers to buy him a meal another time. Ji Won, Hee Yun, and Mrs. Yang are in Eun-ho's newly opened restaurant celebrating her divorce, where they go back and forth on ordering the most expensive items on his menu.
실면조가 힘들어하는데 너무 많이 있는 거 아니에요?
아니에요. 가만히 있어봐요. 이게 다 나만의 방법이 있다고요. 우리 아버지께서 나한테 가르쳐 주셨고 나도 나중에 아이들이 생기면 똑같이 가르쳐 줄 거예요.
It's Christmas and Ji Hyuk is prepping some turkey. He mentions to Ji Won about teaching his kids in the future and asks if she had any thought about any names. He then also tells her that they don't have to have kids straight away. Marketing T1 are having a meeting regarding tasting some new products and they mention how they would market the product to the public. Mr. Kim arrives with beer and he hands out, which he hands out and then proceeds to open. Ji Hyuk is shocked and mentions to Mr. Kim that they are at work.
저 강대리. 신혜 나한테 맡겨줘서 고마워.
요즘 열심히 하시잖아요.
사실 전에 빅히트 말이야. 내가 중간에 좀 방해한 것도 있고 미안하다고.
After the meeting, Mr. Kim pulls Ji Won aside and apologizes about how he previously treated her, which she accepts. Ji Won and Ji Hyuk are at home and Ji Hyuk presents her with some food. After trying it, she tells him that it reminds her of the place that they had visited previously. Ji Hyuk tells her that they opened up a restaurant near where they live so they can eat it every day if she wishes. They go out on a date at their university where they held their first overnight tour. Ji Won tells Ji Hyuk that she no longer feels anxious and alone and that she is ready to start their new life. She then turns to Ji Hyuk and asks if he will marry her. Ji Hyuk doesn't say anything other than he can't believe her and instead walks away. Ji Won calls after him and tells him he doesn't need to give her an answer now. Ji Hyuk comes back with flowers, tells Ji Won she can do whatever she wants, but it is his job to propose, and then he asks her instead if she will marry him. Ji Won agrees and tells Ji Hyuk yes. We see outside of prison, and Ji Won mentions that there are some things that just don't change.
우리 지원이가 왜 내가 가진 건 다 뺏고 싶어 하는지, 내가 불행하길 바라는지.
2574번이 착해서 그래. 그런 인간들은 누울 자리를 보고 다리를 뻗어. 아예 싹을. 잘라야 해.
This gal Sumin is telling another prisoner that Ji-won is delusional when we all know that it is her ass that is actually delusional. She goes on to tell the prisoner that she will talk to Ji-won when she gets out of prison. Min Hwan visits Sumin in prison and tells her that he got 1 billion won in insurance money, and then he asks Sumin if she will help him to give it to Ji-won. Turns out it was just a bad dream that Sumin was having. Sumin then hears on the news that Ji-won and Ji Hyeok are to be married at the Winton Hotel, which drives Sumin crazy. It's the wedding day, and we see Ji-won in a beautiful wedding dress walking down a corridor. She meets Ji Hyeok on the stage and takes his offered hand before being announced by Mr. Lee. We see the bullies from Ji-won's high school along with their work colleagues in the audience who are all celebrating their wedding.
모든 게 다 조금씩은 나아졌어요. 그렇게 믿어요.
After they had said their vows, a happy Ji-won and Ji Hyeok walked back down the aisle. Eun-ho approaches the bullies and mentions that they came to the wedding, and they mention that they hope that Ji-won is truly happy. It's time to throw the bouquet, and Hee-yeon catches it and then presents it to Eun-ho. It's 2016, and Ji-won cuts some ribbon before presenting herself as the director of UNK's Second Chance Foundation. He mentions how the foundation will be used to help people, and a proud Ji Hyeok sits in the audience. Ji-won asks her father if she is doing well this time. We see a baby room with pictures of Ji-won and Ji Hyeok's wedding, and it appears that they had twins and are now finding out how hard it is to raise kids. Ji-won thinks to her father that she thinks she's doing a good job, and we see her father's grave tree full of more pictures of Ji-won's life. It's Ji-won and Ji Hyeok's anniversary, and the chairman and Hee-yeon are babysitting the twins and their new baby, where the twins tell them about their family motto. Ji-won and Ji Hyeok are having a date in an art gallery where Ji Hyeok mentions the artist and his work. Ji-won mentions that she is really happy now, and the episode ends with them both standing close together looking at one of the paintings. So this is where the episode ends, and please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and also please leave your comments below on what you thought of the series and, what you thought of the storyline overall.